Well, hello there. It is yours truly, Miss Banker here with Chapter 29, Section 2. So, the war has begun, right? It's 1914. Serbia and the assassination of the Archduke, Franz Ferdinand, has drug everybody into this conflict as the alliance system breaks down. And so, this part of the war I like to call the illusions and stalemate, right? Europeans marched off to war all excited because up until this point, wars only lasted a few weeks. So, war would be over by Christmas and everyone would win and la la la. We'd all be happy and good times ahead. But of course, this other word, right, tells us that will not be true, and that is stalemate. World War I is ugly and brutal, mostly because of this idea of a stalemate. Neither side has the wherewithal to really overwhelmingly defeat the other. So men just continue to die in this conflict. Good times. All right, so let's plunge in. All right. So we left off here with the two alliances. So what was called the Triple Entente will now be called the Allies. Remember, Italy has switched sides. They felt that Austria-Hungary began this war unjustly, so they joined with the Triple Entente. The Triple Alliance now becomes known as the Central Powers. Those are the countries there in pink, including the Ottoman Empire. All right. So, key words here for World War I. We start to talk in terms of front. The Western Front and the Eastern Front. So the Western Front will primarily be between Germany, the German Empire, and the British and the French. And the Eastern Front will be Russia versus Austria-Hungary and Germany. So let's start with the Western Front. And so you can see here, the front is here. So the bulk of the war takes place right along this line. And so after World War I, this area of northern France and Belgium is just devastated. Trees, villages, farmland burned out and destroyed. I have these little handy lightning bolts of over some of the battles that we will be talking about in the next little bit. So we'll begin here with the Battle of the Marne. So I mentioned in the first video that with militarism, the generals in all these European countries had come up with battle plans. And so the German general, Schlieffen, comes up with this plan, and known as the Schlieffen Plan. So their idea was, hey, let's be honest, Russia's behind, they're barely industrialized, they don't have the technology to really fight this war, to get troops to the battle lines. So we can wait for them to invade. So their plan is to run into France, take out France quickly, and once they defeat France, then swing over to Russia. And it sounds like a good plan, right? In the Franco-Prussian War, they took France out in, I don't know, 6-7 weeks. So they're on their way to just send that. You can see these black arrows, right? All the German armies are just going to march right in, no problem. But strangely, no disrespect to France, they put up quite a big fight, and that is at the First Battle of the Marne. It's kind of an interesting story, right? They send whatever they could. They had taxi cabs, right? Hustling soldiers to the front to meet the German army, and it works. The Germans are stopped here at the Battle of the Marne, and quickly this war becomes a stalemate. France cannot seem to defeat Germany, and Germany cannot seem to move France from the Marne. So they quickly realize, or the Germans, I'm sorry, quickly realize they're going to have to fight this war on two fronts, both in France and in Russia. So your book doesn't mention this, but I think it's an important vocabulary word, and that is war of attrition. This means a wearing down or weakening of resistance as a result of continuous harassment. So this becomes the battle plan. as these generals realize they cannot, with mechanized warfare, right, everybody's got a shot. So they have to come up with a new plan, and that is, let's bleed the other side dry. Eventually they'll give in. And so this is why I think World War I is so terrible, is this war of attrition, just hoping to just bombard them and that the other side will give in. So let's look at some specific examples. Well, I should say, because of the war of attrition, we start to see something called trench warfare. And as you can see, it looks like a real nice place to be. So we'll watch the video in class and we'll see what it was like to be in these trenches, which by all accounts would be pretty miserable. So this is a diagram of what trench warfare looks like. So you could have, in one trench, the British, and then sometimes not even a mile away or less than that, you have the enemies in the other trench. And so this middle area soon became as no man's land. Sometimes this was small, you could hear the enemy in the other trench, and sometimes it was a wider distance. So this is what the war of attrition is. Each side just digs in. They're not prepared to deal with mechanized warfare. And so the one side would jump up, try to run for the other trench, and they'd get mown down. Either they could take this trench and gain territory, or they'd have to run back into their trench. And this goes on month after month. So two of the bloodiest battles here is the Battle of Verdun and the Battle of the Somme. So see what the cost is. This is what the war of attrition is. 4 miles gained at the cost of 1 million casualties. That's the both Central Powers and Allied powers combined. The Battle of the Somme, it lasts for months, 5 miles gained at the cost of 1 million casualties. So, mechanized warfare is ugly. The trench warfare just drags this out for months and months, and you can see the toll that this takes. So the Eastern Front, how does it differ from the Western Front? It is more mobile, so you can see these battle lines at different times. And so it's more mobile because the Russians are so weak. They have bodies to throw at the line, but they do not have technology. So after an initial push, right, the Germans and the Austrians push back. We'll talk here, this is about where the Battle of Tannenberg takes place, where I believe 90,000 Russian soldiers are taken captive. And this is the beginning of the end of Russia. So what's the difference? Eastern Front, more mobile, less of a war of attrition over there. Okay, so your book says Russia struggles, one of the great understatements, I think, of your book. I can't underestimate or tell you how bad Russia is ready for this war. They have a huge army, but they have no technology. This is a picture here of the battle of the Russian troops and guns captured by the Germans at the Battle of Tannenberg. And this is my symbol of the lack of industrialization of Russia. So they're just not ready for this challenge. And it will be after this war that the Russian people start to get angry at the government. Because the Tsar, Nicholas, has come to the front to sort of orchestrate the war. And even though he's not really drawing up the battle plans, it doesn't stop the Russians from blaming him for these terrible losses. Okay, so we'll pause there.